Ever since Sakurai became a YouTuber, we became pretty good friends. See, here's us at the bar one time. It was pretty fun. And ever since we became good friends, he has told me who his favorite character in Smash is. And Subspace Emissary. Now we can all agree that Subspace Emissary is not only one of the coolest things Nintendo has ever done, but the best mode in all of Smash. Regardless of what you think of Brawl and all its jankiness and Meta Knight, it's still insane you get to see all these icons join up to beat up a blue man. But it's obvious that some characters were way more heavily involved in the story, and even more obvious of who's Sakurai's favorite character. And I thought in this 4-hour campaign, which characters were the most useful in the plot, or what I like to call it, which characters did Sakurai actually give a shit about to be relevant in this story. So I decided to make the ranking everyone was waiting for, because God forbid I make the 197th video of, oh, who's the best character in Smash Ultimate, which we all know who it is. Incineroar, I may be biased. No, this is what the people actually want to see. So this is the glass half full, and let's rank every single character in Subspace Emissary to truly find out who is Sakurai's favorite Smash character. Alright, let me give you a quick rundown on how everything is going to work and how exactly I'll be deciding these rankings. So first off, the actual gameplay of Subspace Emissary, you know, when you actually pick up the controller to play the game you paid money for, will not be accounted for. These are just sections that help you traverse through the plot and not the actual characters doing anything significant. It's just you playing as the character. And it goes without saying that overall how good the character actually is in the game won't be accounted for at all. All of these placements rest solely on all the cutscenes. A lot of the factors will be based on how many heroic, sacrificial, individual character development, or just badass moments the characters will show off. Like for example, Donkey Kong sacrificing himself for the greater good, or Kirby blowing up a spaceship, that kind of thing. Moments where you do not play the game, only watch it. But I'm also including the amount of bosses each character fights. You could say that's part of the gameplay, but it's also in the cutscene, so I'm going to count it, okay? By the way, if this character just so happens to be a villain for most of the game, I'm still going to rank them in terms of how villainous they were, and if they succeeded in their plans or failed miserably to the hands of the hero. Alright, are we all on the same page? Cool, cool, okay, good. Let's start ranking. Alright, let's get the useless trio out of the way first. There's nothing to really talk about them since, again, they did nothing of relevance to the plot. And it sucks as well, because I feel like they could have had some pretty interesting roles. Like, literally, out of the top of my head, it could have been funny if Jigglypuff teamed up with Dedede as some pink evil sidekick. Or Toon Link in there for the sole purpose of meeting regular non-Toon Link and them just being like, what the fuck? And then they fight to see who the best Link is. But I guess the story could have survived without those two, but not using Wolf was such a huge missed opportunity. Like, it was right there, just team up with Bowser and Ganondorf for the epic villain threesome team up or something. But no, they literally did jack shit instead. They are secret characters to find, I guess, but it's way too apparent that Sakurai forgot they existed 3 days before the game came out and had to shoehorn them in somehow. Which leads them to get my useless award. Good job, guys. You suck. Now, when I originally had the idea to make this video, I knew a very specific character would be last. But upon revisiting Subspace, it turns out that these guys were the most worthless characters in this story. In fact, I completely forgot they were in the story at all, and I think that says a lot. Man, they don't do anything heroic or cool at all. Hell, their introduction was overshadowed by Meta Knight. All they do, and I'm not even lying, is climb a mountain, which I guess fits in line for their character, watch Meta Knight fight Lucario, not even help, just watch their friend fight a stranger. Yeah, good job, guys, good shit. And then fall off the mountain afterwards. If I could sum up Ice Climber's entire existence in Smash, it would be this. That's right, nothing. Game & Watch is this low for solely 2 reasons. First, even though he's the one piloting the halberd, and may or may not be the one that stole it from Meta Knight in the first place, he doesn't really do much with it and only appears at the end of the campaign. And secondly, when he was on screen, he just took a bunch of L's. Snake smashed him and then he turned into that huge half-and-half guy somehow and proceeded to lose again. I respect that he tried to be relevant and do stuff, unlike the Ice Climbers, but he did a really bad job of doing it. Side note, as I'm editing this video, I just realized that Game & Watch doesn't have that character freeze frame like every other character in this game has, and wow, some villains have that, and Game & Watch doesn't. That just proves how Sakurai just really doesn't care for this guy. Like, he does do things like help Diddy Kong and Donkey Kong, or help defeat Mecha Ridley, but those specific times, it was mostly Captain Falcon putting in the work and being up front, and Olimar was like, I'm here too, guys, don't forget about me. This really hurts to do as the 42nd biggest Luigi fan in the world, but he was kind of a bitch in Subspace Emissary. I'm sorry, guys. Like, sure, he was one of the 3 characters that basically saved the universe, but that was mostly DDD, and on accident. And prior to that, he got scared by a Waddle Dee. Like, I know he gets scared by a lot of stuff, like, that's basically his shtick, but it's a Waddle Dee, just step on it or something, come on, man. If he got any moments prior to his death, he would be higher, but that was it. He got introduced, he got hammered, and then showed up at the end of the game. So it breaks my heart, but Luigi deserves to be low on this list. Sonic's existence in Subspace has always been so funny to me. Dude just pulls up when the game is 99.9% finished and just decides he's also there to save the day. Like, thanks dude, it would've been cool if you were there like 17 hours ago, but whatever, you're here now. This would usually result in him being last place, but since the thing he did do, which was stopping Taboo from doing the big beam attack thingy again, was so cool and really crucial for the plot. So Sonic, even though you showed up a bit too late, you did something that literally no one else can do, so you deserve this spot. Huh, I guess in this scenario, he was actually too slow. I sort of just came to the conclusion that not only was Ganondorf a bitch, but he was also just stupid as fuck. He was teamed up with Bowser for the majority of the runtime, but honestly, it was just Bowser doing all of the work while Ganondorf just sat in the back laughing mischievously. Mischievously? Is that a word? Why did I write that? Okay, I'm leaving it in, whatever. You could say that Ganondorf was controlling him, but no, it was a fucking team up and he did jack shit. And in the end, he betrayed him for literally no reason. Like, if it was just Bowser and Ganondorf, maybe it could make sense, but no. Ganondorf was just Master Hand's bitch in the end, so what was the point? And to pile on how stupid of a decision that was, he died to Taboo literally 2 seconds later. So not only did you betray Bowser, the guy that did everything in your team up, but also you were someone's bitch anyway, so by far Ganondorf gets the award for the stupidest character in the story. Ganondorf is the definition of the guy who does nothing in a group project, but still takes credit for it, but still fails anyways. These 2 characters, or 3 characters, no, it's 2 since Sheik and Zelda are the same person, but they're 2 different characters in this game. Okay, shit, forget about that. But basically, they spend most of this game just being captured. I had a hard time thinking about which character should go where, but in the end, they're both technically the same character in the game, depending on who you decide to save at the start. But even then, they end up getting captured anyway, so I just thought I'd rank them at the same spot. It sucks to also say this, but they spend the majority of the game just being passed around. From Wario to DDD to Bowser and Ganondorf to finally the Halberd where they're set free, but it's the end of the game. But they get some of their kicks in by the end as well. They help destroy that half boss dude. She gets some badass moments against Fox, and Peach offers tea to everyone. They weren't completely useless, but being captured for most of the game, it doesn't help their case. I really like how Wario is a villain, but isn't working for Master Hand like Ganondorf was, and is just doing his own shit. But the problem is, he was really bad at doing his own shit. At the start, he does manage to catch Peach and Zelda and Ness, but his story just falls apart after that. He gets tricked by DDD and ends up losing his knockoff amiibo and his car. So he's that much of a dumbass that he ends up losing his most valuable possessions in under 10 seconds. Not to mention that he proceeds to get destroyed by Red and Lucas and is then thrown out of the story. I appreciate how he tried, but he failed miserably. So Ness wasn't in the story for that long, basically just as long as Luigi, but in that short time, Ness managed to save Lucas from Porky and then beats him, with Lucas I guess, and then jukes the fuck out of the big cannon gun and then sacrifices himself to save Lucas in a matter of minutes. Again, he was then removed from the story for a long ass time, but the feats he managed to pull was very impressive, especially for a child. Who would have thought out of the 2 third-party characters in this game, Snake would get the better treatment. Snake has a pretty cool solo mission as he explores the halberd, the first one to ever do it by the way, and then teams up with a Kirby clone and a furry. And then he doesn't really do much else other than help fight the half and half guy. I should really look up his name. But since a bunch of characters were there for that, it's not really that cool, but he was there. And he also has a pretty nice moment with Zelda and Peach, where he tells them to stay back so they can stay safe, which is pretty heroic and a nice thing of him. They ignore him, but the thought is what counts. Lucario did a solid amount of work for the story despite being introduced so much later. Had a pretty cool 1v1 against Meta Knight, which we all know is one of the more significant and stronger characters in the story, and also helped infiltrate the halberd with Meta Knight, where they save Zelda and Peach and fight the big boss. And also his whole order shtick actually played a role in the plot, which was pretty cool to see. Donkey Kong was and still proves to be one of the greatest things to come out of Nintendo. After he went on his big banana expedition, he was sadly shot by Bowser and was removed for a decent chunk of the story. But what does save him some points was the fact that he sacrificed himself for Diddy, so at least he looked cool while doing it. This kind of reminds me of another story about a monkey who sacrificed, oh my god, oh my god, oh my fucking god. And when he does make his grand return, of course he's still awesome. He defeats Rob and Mecha Ridley with some friends. He was out of the story for a lot longer than I hoped he would be, but when he was on screen, he always stole the show. So Marth was in the story for a long time, but when he was on screen, he was mostly sidelined. Like when he's introduced, he fights an army by himself and clashes with Meta Knight, but after that, he's no longer in the forefront. He also fights the big boss Hippo guy, but he himself doesn't do anything that significant. Man, Captain Falcon is just so cool. You may think he should be lower because he did appear near the endgame of the story, but when the very first thing you do is Falcon Punch a huge robot into the sun, it is hard not to rank him number 1. From then on, Captain Falcon just steals away all the scenes he's in. And the fact that he saves Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, Samus, Rob, and Pikachu from death with his blue Falcon just screams awesome. So you might be wondering, why exactly is Ike higher than Marth? He's just as or even less involved in the story than he is, and even has less screen time. So by that logic, he should be placed lower than he is, right? Nope, because he also happens to have the coolest scene in the campaign. When all hope seems lost and it looks like Rob is gonna win again, Ike comes in from hell with the Great Ether and stops him. By far the most badass scene in the entire story, and I love him for doing that. Again, if you're still confused, I'm ranking these in terms of character-specific moments that are significant, and this is pretty significant. Mostly badass, but also very significant. And I think being the only character to stop a bomb from exploding is a very worthy and cool character-specific moment. Pokemon Trainer's existence in this entire story is odd and funny because his only goal is to catch Ivysaur and Charizard, and once he does that, he says, I'm good, and stops being relevant. Okay, that's a little bit of a lie. I liked how he helped out Lucas in overcoming his fear of everything. So with all things considered, I think he's a pretty good middle-of-the-road character. Man, it feels weird putting Pikachu in the spot, but I feel like it's justified. After getting saved by Samus, which, man, what a sad scene, he was basically her sidekick and just followed him around. His shining moment was obviously when he saved Samus for that Thunderbolt, which, cheap move bro, that's a flying type. Probably, and then proceeded to defeat the mecha version afterwards, so he definitely played an important role in the story, but not so much as at 14 above him. Falco has some really good shining moments for sure, like defeating the gun sword boss and helping Diddy find Donkey Kong, but a lot of his moments were already done before by Fox. Not that it takes away from his accomplishments, but it also kinda does. Come on Falco, be original you stupid bird. You're still a cool guy Falco, don't worry. Samus just stays true to herself in the best way possible, saving Pikachu from literal animal abuse, get PETA on that, and being able to infiltrate that whole enemy base by herself would secure her a high ranking. She also defeats Ridley and Mecha Ridley, but that's kinda normal for her at this point. So Diddy is interesting because he has some super heroic and badass moments, but also some huge blunders. Diddy Kong had to get saved a total of 3 times, which is a lot more than any other character. Sure, you could say he was getting ambushed or caught by surprise, but if it happens more than 1 time, Diddy should have really learned to be more aware. But on the flip side, Diddy was also really useful in defeating Rayquaza and Mecha Ridley, and also defeated a ton of armies. And also, it's hard not to admire Diddy Kong's sheer desire to save Donkey Kong, and just how he's not afraid of anything. So even though he's a dumbass, he gets a lot done. Okay, now let's move on to the better part of the villain team up. I already mentioned it before, but of course Bowser was the one that actually got shit done, like capturing Zelda and Peach and Donkey Kong. And also, he seems to be 1 step ahead of everyone, which is strange because he's a dumbass, he's Bowser. A tiny nitpick I guess I have is that he relies too much on that uber death gun way too often, rather than using his raw strength, which probably doesn't bother you that much, but like, come on, it's Bowser. He has so much more physical power than anyone else. And also, something happens near the end of the game, which I'll bring up later, which does deteriorate his role in the story a bit, but hey, Bowser had a goal and he accomplished it if it wasn't for the betrayal. So Yoshi was a part of the group that is quote-unquote the main group in Subspace Emissary. Like, sure, there's no main character of the story mode, but this group specifically felt like they were. It's hard to explain, but I hope I'm not alone on that. But anyway, out of the 5, I definitely feel like Yoshi contributed the least out of them and was the least involved. You may ask, how can I feel like that if he was there for the gang's adventures? Well, he was there, but he didn't really do anything himself. I feel as though it's the little things that separate Yoshi from the rest of the pack, like Link or Pit shooting down DDD's car, or Mario trying to punch a hole through Link. Little things like this that define the character in the story, Yoshi just doesn't have. On the bright side though, it was funny how Yoshi just woke up to all this one day and was like, shit, guess we're doing this now. So there is something that separates Lucas from the rest of the roster, and it's the fact that he actually has some sort of character arc. How he was a bitch and learns to become less of a bitch. And even though it's nothing out of the ordinary and pretty generic, the fact that out of the 35 characters, 1 of them went through some development phase is pretty neat. From being scared of Porky and getting your friend captured, to defeating the guy who stole your friend and saving yourself and someone else from certain doom is a great way to go about it. And by the end of his arc, he holds out his hand to Red, showing that he's no longer scared and now he can protect himself and his friends. It's not a tearjerker or anything, but gets a really big good for you. Sadly, after this, he kinda just fades to the background, which is fine. He got his moment, but I would like to see some sort of reunion between him and Ness. Now, I went back and forth with both characters a lot, and I just came to the conclusion that they were both great assets to the team and had time to show off. But they never hit that big stride themselves to get into that top 5. But I also can't really complain if they did anything wrong or weren't useful, because they were just pretty solid heroes in the story all around. If you really need an official ranking, because I know you're just dying to have it, please tell me, I need to know. I guess Pit can go at 7 because he was in the story for longer and saved Mario at the start, but again, they're basically neck and neck. Fox just always pulls through the second he goes on screen. Like, dude gets his entire ship destroyed and burned, and he just jumps out of it without a scratch, and then fights a huge boss and saves Diddy in one fell swoop. He has 3 cool-ass moments in one scene when most characters barely get even 1. Not to mention how he decides to help Diddy even though he barely knows him. And by that point, most characters would just fade off, but Fox doesn't. He continues to get involved. Like when he attacks the Halberd, or when he helps defeat that bipolar machine. Wow, I got so many nicknames for him. Fox does nearly nothing wrong, but his feats are slightly outdone by... Alright, I've been dreading it, but it's time to talk about the Kirby characters, or how I call it, Sakurai's actual favorites. Characters that get special treatment because Sakurai made them, and it's basically their children, and there's no better example than Meta Knight, who was good in the cutscenes, and in the game. Meta Knight really likes to hop from group to group, huh? First it was Marth and Ike, then it was the Ice Climbers, then it was Snake and Lucario, then it was the Halberd gang. Like, dude just gets around. And in every group, I feel like he's the leader, and he always, and I mean always, takes action. From saving Lucas and Red to taking back the Halberd himself, Meta Knight mostly acts on his own and never loses anything from it. come on, y'all, it's Mario. What can I possibly say? He saves guys, fights guys, sacrifices himself, and even has a sanctioned fight to the death with Kirby. Since he's Mario, he always tries to take center stage and be in the front, which of course is what Mario's best for, and well, that's basically it. There's probably more I can say, but it's Mario. Everyone knows what he does already. Get a man like Mario. He may be short. You may be judging me a lot right now, but just hear me out for a second. So King Dedede is another villain who also just does his own thing, but unlike Wario, he actually has more than one brain cell. Like, he was able to steal from the fraud Wario and got a free ride as well. And also, there's no ulterior motive of capturing the knockoff amiibo. He just thinks they look cool. Just friends to have in his castle so he isn't lonely, which is just wholesome. Or creepy as fuck, no in between. It is there he gets hit by a rock, which is not his fault to be fair, and it was intentional obviously, so he can save the world. Like, okay, Ness and Luigi were there too, but Dedede was the obvious leader and knew exactly where to go. No one ever casually saves the universe and pretend it's normal, but Dedede did, and I find that awesome. He also turns sides rather easily and for no reason, but I'm willing to look past that because of the last scene he's in. So Dedede finds Bowser lying around dead, and being the Chad he is, by the way, this is real, this is exactly how it played out. He revives him, Bowser wants to fight him, so they fight, he beats him, and then revives him again. And also, this moment is interesting because, is King Dedede technically stronger than Bowser now? Like, every time two characters square off, there's always two outcomes the player can choose. But here, Dedede beats Bowser, and that's the only outcome. So canonically, in Smash at least, is King Dedede stronger than Bowser? Anyway, in conclusion, Dedede ends up saving the world for no reason, and I think that's a good enough reason to be number 3. Surprised at all? So everyone already knows that Kirby is basically the main character of Smash that even shows off in Ultimate. So you may be wondering, why isn't he number 1? And well, I'll tell you in a second, but for now, oh my god, Kirby is a god in this game. Kirby shows no signs of weakness and by far has done the absolute most. From saving friends to 1v1ing a boss by himself. Like, guys, that is really impressive. Think about it. Every other boss in the story has at least 2 or more characters fighting it, but Kirby said, nah, I'm doing this shit by myself. Kirby was also the true leader of the 5, like, you tried Mario, but Kirby is just balling way harder than you. And of course, Kirby's shining moment, the moment of pure bliss, as Kirby single-handedly takes down the Uber Mega Death Gun 5000 in one hit. Kirby truly deserves the MVP of the story, but I think one character topples him. Please don't leave this video, I need this. So why exactly is Rob number 1? Because he's a god as a villain and a hero. So for most of the plot, he goes around planting these bombs down to, you know, blow up the world or whatever, and the thing is, he keeps succeeding. Like, characters have tried to stop him several times, but he keeps on getting away with it each and every time. Well, I guess Ike stopped him that one time, but shut up, he was surprised. So this already means that by far he is one of the most useful villains in subspace because he keeps winning. Like, even more than Bowser, who I thought was pretty useful as well. But as he keeps going on these missions, more and more of his friends are sacrificing themselves to get the bomb to explode, and as a Rob itself, dude starts to get guilty as the game goes on. And by the end, it looks like he's done taking shit from Ganondorf and fights back. He doesn't really succeed in that, but hey, they were mind controlled, so it's fine. But the fact of the matter is, the only reason why this endgame happened was because of Rob doing all this hard stuff while these dudes were doing nothing in the background. And Rob also goes through some significant moments that build up over time that leads him to become one of the best heroes by the end. Dude just wants to stop mass Rob genocide, and I'm all here for it. So that was probably the weirdest Smash ranking ever made. Probably, I haven't checked. And guys, if you disagree with me, just remember, it's just my opinion. But also Sakurai's, or YouTubers, we're basically best friends now, so it's not an opinion, this is a known fact.